What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 55th episode. Let me get that correct. I'm just so excited by the 55th episode. Today it's only me and Justine. Justine's really going to carry the conversation, so I'm excited about that. But Justine, how are you? What's going on?
I'm good. Happy it's Friday. It's not snowing today, so that is a win in my books.
Yeah, you know what? It is also not snowing here in Phoenix, so I think that's a win
Hmm.
too. If it was snowing, then I'd be very concerned. But honestly, it's just so busy with like waste management up here and the Super Bowl, and I'm like, oh, I'm never leaving the house. So
Yeah, I would not be leaving if I was in Scottsdale this weekend. I would be hunkering down, staying inside.
not the vibe. But it's still a good day. So what are we chatting about today?
Today we're talking about taking leads from an ad and converting them. So really there's like two types of leads that we're going to be talking about. There's referral leads and cold online leads. So let's kind of start with like explaining what those are and the differences between those two.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest misnomer about leads is that all leads are created equal, right? Just like all people are created equal. Um, People think that all leads are created equal. Well, one's true, one's not. So here's the thing: leads are come in different varieties, right? And the two big ones that we're going to talk about today is referral-based leads and then cold leads. Okay, so referral-based leads kind of walk through, and usually the scenario is plays out like this: you do amazing work for someone. They are so ecstatic about what you've done. They post about you. They tell their friends, and ultimately, someone's like, "Wow, I want that thing done too." So let's say that you're a landscaper, right? Uh, you do amazing turf installation with a like pool on their pavers. It's amazing. Their friends come back to see their backyard. They ask who did this. We want the same thing, and your client refers this person. When they refer, this individual is in a heightened state of mind where they really they've already qualified themselves in that they want something like this, right? And they trust you because they've seen the work that you've done. So then you practically like quickly move through the rapport building, get to price, and then start working together, or don't. But usually that's how it works. Now, cold leads, you have to take a couple steps back, right? So the reason the referral lead moves so quickly through the pipeline is because they already seen your work, they trust you, they have a personal in because someone that they know trusts you. So there's two validations, and uh, they really have qualified that they want this thing. Cold advertisement, outbound, all the same thing. You reach out to someone, you put your ad in front of someone, they say, "Great, that sounds interesting." They're wowed by the ad. Then the real work starts. So they fill out a form, submit it to you, and uh, maybe they book a call, maybe they don't. 33% of people book a call, 66.36, whatever, then actually don't book a call. That's when the work actually starts. And we're going to go into strategies on like how to actually do it. But what you want to do is you need to bridge that gap between the ad being submitted and trusting you. And the best way to do that is actually having a human conversation with them, building rapport, asking what they want. Why do they want it now? Um, and then from there, meeting with them, showcasing your knowledge, showcasing projects you've done, getting them really bought in and installed. So I think we talked about a lot of things, but just any questions about like the referral based side or the like cold lead side?
Yeah. Are we trying to convert all of these leads or like just a small percentage of them? Like, what is our kind of goal here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So referrals tends to be closer to like a 50% close rate, which is like kind of nuts to think about, right? Like if for every two referrals, you'll probably close one. And again, maybe you'll close two in like a long enough time horizon, but usually in a anywhere from like a week to 4 week period, you'll close one. Typically what I've seen. Every industry is a little different, right? A pool install takes a lot longer than like artificial grass install. But for a cold lead, you're looking at about 10 to 20% conversion, which is really good. But that means for every 10 leads that come in, one to two of them will convert into a paying engagement of some sort. So what that means is like for landscapers specifically, if you get 10 leads, you're probably going to get between 7 and 8 estimates done. Then you'll do about, 5 to 6 like actual like proposals, contracts, and then usually 1 to 2 of them will buy in a certain point of time because we like the time batch things. So in maybe a year, most of them will convert, but in a 30-day window, usually 1 to 2 of them will convert. So you're right. You're not going to convert all of them, and maybe you don't want to. Like if it's too small of a job or it's too far, or like they want a specific type of masonry done that you're just not an expert in, you shouldn't take those deals because they'll just create more headache later on.
Those numbers might like scare people out of doing online advertising because they're like, oh, those are so much lower than referral advertising. So like, how do you what is your advice to like someone who might be a little bit tentative about trying this out?
That's a phenomenal question. So here's the thing: referrals are amazing and they'll always be number one, but they're very inconsistent. Like it's very hard to build like a sustainable business on just referrals. Now, granted, people have done that. I know businesses who have done that, but there's always for everyone who wins the Super Bowl since it's coming here, there are a lot of teams that don't, right? So what online advertising specifically does, it gives you that ability to streamline that process, to know like for every X amount of dollars I put in, I get Y. So yes, you might say 1 in 10, that sounds awful. But let's put some numbers to it, right? Realistically, what we're seeing in the landscaping world is between 500 and $550 spent to acquire, like in advertising, to acquire a uh, a, a job. And most of the jobs we have is between $5,000 and $20,000, which puts you at about you know two about maybe 2.5 to 10% of that project being marketing cost. The nice thing is most landscapers are between 20 and 30% profit. So you're looking at between 10 and 18, say your profit margin is 20%, right? You're looking at between 10 and 18% profit margin on these jobs, which means if it's a $10,000 job, right, costs you $500 to acquire that job, right? That's 5%. If your profit margins are 20%, you make 15%, which is $1,500 in pure profit. That's after paying your team, taxes, all that. You walk away with $1,500. So really, you're spending $500 to acquire $1,500 in profit. 10,000 in jobs, 15 in profit. Which I mean, that's amazing. Like I mean, you don't get that 3x in profit. I mean, banks, even like a treasury bond is 4%, right? So for every dollar you put in, you get 4 cents. Here you put, I mean, I don't know, $1 in, you get $3 out. Like, pretty good.
So now that we know it's worth it to, try this out, what happens if businesses start getting too many leads in? Like, is there a way to kind of control how many leads you're bringing in, like how much work you're putting into this?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why you gotta have like a great partner that can actually like work with you on that. Because right now it's the slow season. So you want to start getting 3 weeks booked out. But during the summer, you're probably gonna be inundated with a lot of more referral leads. You don't want to turn off the tap 100%, but you want to focus on how do we actually get more out of the free organic ways. So yeah, like you can turn the tap on and off based on like where you are in the business. Plus, you might have a different service offering. So the nice part is like once you have that service, like let's say that you do turf install and turf maintenance later, or you do like some tree trimming or whatever. It's probably more advantageous to do the higher ticket ones now, and in the summer the lower ticket ones. So yeah, I mean, the nice thing is you could control that with advertising versus referrals, where it's up to people.
Okay, let's get super tactical. So, how do we get these leads? Like, what is our process and kind of what platforms, how we work them, and everything like that?
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of being like platform agnostic. So really, we like to get a baseline and then work from there. So most of the work we first start doing could be on Facebook and Instagram. There are other platforms like Nextdoor and Google we can do later, but we want to get a baseline. We want to understand for every dollar we get put in, how many dollars do we get out, right? So we get the baseline. Um, but first, it really starts with like, what's the ideal type of project, right? Like, if you're a landscaper, you don't want to go after people who rent more than likely because they typically don't have, they're going to be there for a year, 2 years, 3 years. They might not be incentivized to spend $5,000 to $20,000 on a project because they're not going to be there long term. So, are you targeting homeowners? Great. Where are they? Homeowners tend to be a little older. So, you know, where are, you know, 30-year-olds to 70-year-olds hanging out nowadays, right? Um, Once you know that, you can actually launch campaigns that make sense to those individuals. And then we like to keep it super simple, form fill. Once we get their contact info, we want to start working those leads. And this is where a lot of people, again, referrals, they're very bought into the process. You probably don't have to follow up as much, but with online advertising ones, you have to actually follow up quite a bit. And I know we'll probably talk about more strategically what that looks like, but yeah, I have a very specific system.
I say let's get into actually working the leads. I'm sure people are curious about that, because
Yeah.
they might even have leads right now that they need to work on. So let's get into that.
Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing. It's speed the lead, right? If you want something, let's say that this happened yesterday. It's 6 o'clock and you really don't want to make food, right? You are more likely to, if you see an ad, buy something then, right, on DoorDash or whatever. Now, 2 hours later, if you see an ad for more or less the same thing, like let's say it's pizza, tacos, burgers, your need might have been fulfilled. So you have a very short period of time where you can really maximize your lead, right? So within 5 minutes, we want to be calling these individuals. And throughout the first day, we want to do at least 2 phone calls to them and 2 text messages. So within the first like day of being connected, you want at least 4 touch points with them. After that, I still call them twice for 5 days, and I text them about 1 to 2 times a day. And the secret hack is sometimes I use my personal phone. So we have an online system that we use for calling, but sometimes I'll switch it up and use my personal cell because if you keep getting the same calls and texts from one number, you might disqualify them or forget about that. So that's something that we did this week where I've been trying to work this lead for like 6 or 7 days now. I just called from my personal cell. He picked up and he's like, I've been meaning to get back to you. Locked them into a quick conversation and then had the demo, then proposal out. And all that was done because I was using my phone. So there's all these like small innovations that can really like make a difference.
So are you seeing like people responding to all of these calls and text messages, or are you sending that many because you're not getting responses? Like what is kind of the response level look like, and how do you adjust based on that?
It's a good question. I don't know, Larissa, you'll probably have more thoughts here. I don't really. Uh, I have thick skin now, so I'm just going. Even people I've had calls with, right? With this new, the focus that we have on landscapers, we can only have one landscaping client per industry, per city. So I'm texting them saying, "Hey, listen, I got a proposal out to," and I'll name drop the company. So I'm like they signed before you. I literally can't help you. I'll have to refer you out to someone. Um, or if like let's say they were driving, got disconnected, I'll text them. I'll call them. Like I, I don't really stop working them until they start getting leads, which is like, we launched a campaign today. So I let him know that, hey, campaigns were launched. Hey, we just got our first like, link click. Like keeping people in the process and not in the dark is just something that we stand for. So they'll probably never stop hearing from us because I want them bought into the project. There's a couple things for us, at least it keeps longevity in clients, as well as for me, like, I don't know, just even if you went to a concert last week, right? Like, you probably got push notifications from, did you drive or fly?
I flew.
Yeah, so like it'd be kind of good to know that your flight isn't delayed, right? Or like,
Mhm.
if it is delayed, that by how much and like what the roads are. Like keeping that open stream of communication is just great. And I know I went on a long super tangent, but the reason I say that is like these are people who don't know you. They don't know what you've done. They don't even know if you can help them. So you should do everything in your power to work those leads up until the point where they tell you, no, thank you.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Lexi.
I was just gonna say, I don't know that your question specifically was answered, Justine, which is like, how many responses do you typically like should you typically expect from, let's say, an ad campaign? You're not gonna get 100% response, and that's okay. And oftentimes you're not gonna get 100% or even like a super high response on the first message. It just depends on that first message you send, right? So I'm a lot more likely to respond to something that's like short and maybe just ask me a single question like, hey, are you still interested in X? Versus somebody saying, hey, here's my entire life story, like a 4 paragraph text message that I'm like, ugh, too much work. I'm just not going to read it. So keep in mind that any responses you do get will be heavily dependent on the messages that get sent out to them initially. Um, and that's definitely a big part of it too. So it's hard to generalize like how many responses you get. We see approximately between like, and again, really, this is a pretty wide range, so bear with me, but between like 10 and 50% will respond after the first 2 to 3 messages, somewhere in that range of the first 2 to 3 messages, we get a response. But what's nice about that is, especially if you're doing ads, you can kind of adjust the frequency you get. Once you figure out, like, okay, these are how many people that are responding to my first message. If it's on the lower end, that's okay. You just may need to put more in ad spend, or you probably just need to revisit that message to see how you can make it a little bit easier for people to respond and kind of go back through the lead flow. But that's sort of what you can expect in terms of response. And a lot of times people will respond and say, like, nope, you were too slow. Like, not as interested anymore. That's why you got to have things that, like, when they come in, especially, it's like time dependent. If somebody's coming in at like 11, well, obviously you're not going to be able to call them right away because you might be asleep if it's like 11 p.m. versus like if somebody comes in at 11 a.m., you should call them at 11:01, you know? And those are kind of the differences you have to keep in mind, like how to manage these leads versus when they come in, and have systems in place to be able to manage those, to be able to maximize the responses you'll be able to get. Hopefully that makes sense. It answers the question.
Everything's a lot better than mine.
Nico, you had mentioned also these cold leads are coming in pretty like skeptical of your business because they don't really know anything about you. What are some things you can include in your messaging that can help build that trust and kind of ease their skepticism a bit?
Yeah, I mean, first thing is just human, right? Like it's just rapport building. It's just making sure that like for me, when I jump on a call, I make a joke. That's my very first go-to. I'm not the funny guy, but like, you know, this is like the standard thing. Like, hey, if I ask, hey, how are you? You're like, good, we're fine, right? I'm the opposite. I'm just like, man, I'll be honest with you. Like, I just like I took a big sip of coffee and I got like all these grounds in my mouth and I literally thought I was gonna die. And I can hear sometimes people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I really like coffee. How are you? Or I'll joke about something like I'll just like break the ice because like it's scary. You know, people like all of us have that fear in us. So I like to make a joke. After that, I get right to the point on why I'm calling, um, and then I just straight up ask them like, depending if they laugh at the first joke. If they do laugh, I'll get straight for it. If they haven't broken the tension, I'll be like, yeah, you probably don't need any more like turf installs, right? You and the crew are probably like completely maxed out, can't take any more jobs for the rest of the season. I'm like, no, I can. I'm like, oh, great, I can help. Let's talk about this. Then after that, like I like to ask a couple questions and then start sending them. I send my deck over. That's very simple. That shows examples of what we've done, how we work. Um, for a landscaper, like they can start showing their past work, like properties they've done, all that. Because once you build rapport, you want to build trust. And after trust, then you want to hammer in the problem that they have. Because I always ask, like, what would happen if you don't do this? Well, don't do this, I might have to let like one crew go. Oh, okay. Probably like you've known these guys for a long time, right? Yeah, and then they might go to someone else, blah blah blah. And I just really want to foreshadow, like, okay, like at our current state, we're not going to where we want. So what if we're kind of needing to change? Then I paint the future, and then I offer like a very low cost, quote unquote, way of like working together. And then we either move on and work from there or keep working them, giving them free advice, or they say no, not interested. And they're like, cool, you have a great day.
Cool. Anything else we haven't covered yet about converting online leads?
Nico kind of touched on this, but one thing I think is important really is that qualification piece. So when leads come in, make sure you're doing something to qualify them. If they see, let's say, your ad and they're interested, that does not mean they're a good fit for you or that they're qualified. It means they've raised their hand and said, okay, I'm interested. Now, let's say you're a landscaper and you only want to work with people that are going to have you install at least 50 square feet of turf or whatever. I think that's kind of a really low number, but let's say that's your floor. And they want you to do an apartment balcony. That's going to be like 20 square feet. Those are the types of people that you might just say, hey, just go to Home Depot and just buy a roll of turf. Like it's going to be easy for you. Like I'm not going to send a crew out to do 20 square feet, right? It doesn't make sense. Those are the types of people you want to be qualifying in and out to make sure that you can get them in the right place in your funnel. And if they're not a good fit, do what you can to refer them out, and you can still make a little bit of income from them, not necessarily as much as you would if you were doing a full job, let's say. But if you can refer them to somebody who might be a better fit for them, you're not wasting the lead per se. So that qualification piece is really important to understand who's a good fit for you and your business, who's a good fit for your referral partners, and then who's just not a good fit for anybody.
Nico, anything else you want to add?
No, Larissa summed it up really well. It's that Starbucks. It's that Starbucks brain of hers.
Why we gotta do that every Friday. Every Friday we get Starbucks. Keep our brains sharp before the weekend.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing, amazing pod. Hopefully super tactical. If you guys have any questions, let me know at Nico at getboundlessmedia.com. Social, Get Boundless Media. Also, yeah, I mean, if you at any point you were like, man, that sounds awesome, but I don't even know where to start, like let us know. Or if you have any questions or follow-up from here, we always like to get audience member participation, so let us know. And yeah, I don't even know who's in the Super Bowl, so go sports, and we will talk to you guys next.
Eagles and Chiefs, yes.
Oh, there you go. I'll talk to you guys next pod. Have a phenomenal rest of your day. Peace.